president, what kind of man, when confronted with a policy that is simply not working, decides to pursue it with even more energy, resources, and lives?
He's the most decisive person I ever met in my life.
Doug Wead has known George W. Bush for 20 years, since he worked in the White House when Bush's father was vice president and became an informal advisor to the son.
He absolutely has doubts. Yeah, oh sure. Sure. But compared to most people I've met, he has fewer, given the situation he's in, than anybody I know.
But others are filled with doubt about the president's chosen course. Author Ron Suskind has written extensively about the Bush presidency, says it's George Bush's nature to reject those concerns.
I think his response is they're doubting me as a person, doubting me fundamentally. And as he faces a nation that's increasingly one of doubters, it seems as though he's digging in to saying my confidence can and will prevail here.
And that, say longtime friends, reflects the president's basic character. Son and grandson and great-grandson of highly successful men, George W. Bush spent years, it seemed, struggling to come to grips with that legacy. Doug Wead recalls a conversation with the president's younger brother, Marvin.
After the election in 1988, when his father was elected president, I went out to dinner with Marvin. And I said, Marvin, how about you guys? You have any interest in politics, your generation? He said, yeah, we think Jeb's going to do something. I said, well, what about George? He was my boss, and he was the oldest, you know. I said, what about George? He said, George, he's the family clown. He's not going to do anything. So this was the perception in 1988.
Glad to be here. I'm glad to be with Brother Jeb. We're really proud of him and our family.
To the Bush family, it was always younger brother Jeb who was the heir apparent. Doug Wead recounts a conversation in the Oval Office with the president's mother in 1990 when George W. was thinking about running for governor of Texas.
And she turned around and she said, you tell him not to run. We don't want him to run. And this became public, this idea that they didn't want him hurt because they thought he'd lose. And they thought Jeb had a chance. In fact, Barbara said, he's too much like me, let's face it. His brother Jeb is more like his dad.
On this so-called troop surge or escalation or whatever you want to call it. But can the Democrats stop it? And do they have a plan that could work? Joining us, Senator Barack Obama, a leading Democrat who's consistently opposed the war in Iraq. Senator, you and other Democrats have proposed a phased withdrawal of U.S. troops of some sort. Tonight, the president said a step back now would force the collapse of the Iraqi government, tear that country apart, and result in mass killings on an unimaginable scale and lead to U.S. troops staying longer. What's wrong with that analysis?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, the president and I agree on one thing, and that is our troops have done everything that's been asked of them, and they've carried out their mission in an extraordinary fashion. The second thing I want to make clear is I see no desire on the part of any member of Congress to in any way constrain the resources that are needed by troops who are currently on the ground to carry out the remainder of their mission and come home safely. What I did not see from the president was any recognition that there is not a military solution to the problems that we face in Iraq right now. They're political. The problem we have is Shia and Sunni are unwilling to compromise and arrive at the sort of accommodations that would lead to stability. And in the absence of that, 20,000 troops is not going to make a difference. A phased withdrawal is the only leverage we have to force that political accommodation.
Let me ask you briefly.